Welcome to the Financial Feast podcast. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Zach.
And this is John. And today we're going to be talking about mortgages.
Welcome back, everybody. Great to be here with you on episode number 17. We're going to be discussing a very important topic with our guest, who is the Dean of Mortgages, right?
That's right. That's right.
He is a professional, been doing this for a number of years, right?
Yes, that's right.
So we thought it would be helpful to have somebody in on the topic. So today we're going to be talking about, there's probably pretty much everybody's at least heard about it. The Biden administration's kind of brought out this home ownership rule where people are kind of, what does this mean as far as, am I going to get charged more for my mortgage? Why is this happening? So that's what we're going to discuss today. Before we get into that, we do have a food topic every single week.
Oh, yes.
So I'm going to just bring this on you. I didn't give you any preparation for
Wonderful.
this. I was curious what the best thing you have ever eaten in your whole life is.
The best thing I've ever eaten in my whole life. I was in Florence, Italy.
Oh,
with
I like
already great.
with my Italian wife.
Okay.
This was our baby moon. This is the last big trip we took before we had kids.
Okay.
Was in Florence, Italy, and we sat down at a little outdoor restaurant, and I had some pasta carbonara that was unlike anything I've ever had.
Yeah.
Like, I've had pasta carbonara before, and I've had it since, and it's fine, right?
Yeah.
My wife's Italian. We eat pasta every single Sunday.
Sure you do.
It's good.
Yeah.
Like, it's
It is.
very good. You know, Christmas cavadelles, you got all these. But this pasta carbonara in Florence, Italy, eating outdoor, like 74 degrees, you see, you know, the grand Domo or whatever in the background. I've never had anything that good. That's probably my favorite meal I've ever had.
All right.
So yeah, that would be my answer.
I mean, you came up with that really quick,
That
too.
was really quick.
I mean, that was like, that really made an impact
it
on you.
definitely left an impact for sure.
It did. You should for sure ask my wife about it next time you see her. Ask her about the pasta carbonara in Florence, Italy, and she will for sure remember it.
Perfect.
Have you now, because I know your in-laws are obviously Italian, has there been more pressure on them to perform to this level?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
You know, their pasta compared to like normal pasta is already superior, so I'm never complaining. But yeah, that specific dish I had in the summer of 2014 was just perfect.
amazing.
All right.
So
I love
yeah.
it. Sounds great.
Yeah. So, bringing this all back here, the real reason why we have you on here is there's a thing going on right now. So many articles on the internet, so many news agencies and articles being reported on this new home ownership rule. And once again, we wanted to bring John in here. He is, he works for Barrett Financial. You have your own group, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and we wanted him to kind of explain a little bit about what's going on. When we get down to it, I guess the number one question that everyone wants to know, starting off, is, am I going to get charged more if I have good credit, and do I have to pay more if I have a down payment? What's going on there?
Yeah, great question. So give me a minute. This is a long story, and I actually kind of want to tell a story because I think this is going to help explain.
Sure.
So this is in regard to changes to LLPAs, which went into effect in January.
So what's an LLPA, just real quick?
So an LLPA is a loan level price adjustment.
Okay.
Essentially, this is what we're talking about. Every single person that's buying a house is going to get an interest rate.
Sure.
Every single person is allowed to get whatever interest rate he wants. It's just that for different people, the same interest rate might cost a different amount. All right, so think of interest rates just like items that you could purchase from the gas station. You could walk into a gas station and instead of grabbing one of 50 different types of, energy drinks, you could grab an interest rate. All right, here's a 5%, here's a 5.5%, here's a 6%. Each of these interest rates costs a different amount of money. As you can guess, lower interest rates are going to cost the buyer more money. Higher interest rates are going to cost the buyer less money, right? Sometimes it makes sense to pay a little bit more money for a lower interest rate if you think you're going to be in that loan long term. It's going to save you a lot of money. But the price of each rate is going to change according to your qualifications. If you have an 800 credit score, you're going to get better pricing on the same interest rate than somebody with a 500 credit score. Mm-hmm. And I think everyone understands why, right?
Sure.
Lenders are looking at these two borrowers and they're like, you're very likely to pay your bills. You're less likely to pay your bills.
Yeah.
So we might give you the same interest rate, but we're going to charge you more. The thing that determines exactly how much each buyer is charged are these LLPAs, these loan level pricing adjustments. So if you've got an 800 credit score, you might have a loan level pricing adjustment of 0. You get that rate for free, no extra cost.
Okay.
Whereas if you have a 600 credit score, you can get the same interest rate, but you're going to have a loan level pricing adjustment of, let's just say, 2. What is 2? That means 2%, which is 2% of the loan amount. Okay. So if you've got a $400,000 mortgage and you have a loan level pricing adjustment of 2, in order to get the same interest rate, you have to pay an extra $8,000, 2% of that $400,000 loan amount. Now, LLPAs are set in stone by Fannie and Freddie. These are the people that buy loans on the secondary market.
Government,
Yeah.
right,
Correct.
of mortgages.
So a lender gives you a loan and they want to sell that loan as quickly as possible so then they can give KJ a loan, right? Who do they sell it to? Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, almost always.
Yeah.
And so Fannie says, here's what we will pay you for this loan. And they will pay more for the 800 credit score buyer than they will for the 600 credit score buyer because the 800 credit score buyer is more likely to pay his bills. So this is where these LLPAs come in. These change all the time. Not like every 3 months, but they change quite often. Every couple years, we find out, oh, we have new LLPAs. Cost for this buyer going up, cost for this buyer going down. Now again, these new LLPAs were rolled out in January. We are hearing about it in April. They were rolled out in January. Why? Here's why. Because when they were rolled out in January, every loan officer in America was like, that's interesting. Doesn't really change all that much.
Interesting.
I will tell you why it doesn't change all that much in a little bit. But what has happened recently? Well, last week, there was a journalist writing for a pretty partisan newspaper that discovered these changes, and he came across a chart that he misunderstood. Okay? And we will put some links to the charts that we're talking about in the show notes so everyone can see this. I'm not trying to fool anybody, but it's something, honestly, as soon as you look at the charts, you can realize exactly what's going on. All right? So I want you guys to think of 3 charts. One chart is, here's the old LLPAs. These are the old charges that we charged each person, depending on credit score, depending on how much money they put down. Here's the new chart, all right? Here's the new LLPAs. And then someone that was trying to be very helpful made a 3rd chart, which detailed the differences between the old and the new.
Okay.
And if one LLPA got better for borrowers, we put a little green box there. And if one LLPA got worse for borrowers, it was put in red, right? This borrower is now going to have to pay more than he used to for this loan. That box is red. This borrower isn't going to have to pay as much as he used to. We'll put that in green. Now, the majority of the new chart on this box of change was in green. There was one very specific section in the middle, specifically with people putting 15 or 20% down, that got worse for borrowers. All right? It got worse than it was before.
Okay.
Here's what happened, okay? I'm going to use a basketball analogy. I think that this is helpful.
Okay.
Let's take 2 basketball players, Shaquille O'Neal and Steph Curry. All right?
Okay.
And let's just think about their free throw percentage. Now, everybody knows Shaquille O'Neal was never good at free throws.
That's true.
All right?
Yeah.
One year, he shot 42% from the free throw line. In the offseason, he worked really hard, and he improved his free throw percentage. He shot 50% the next year.
Yeah.
50. Yeah. He improved by 8%.
Yeah.
All right? So if we're going to show a chart of change, we've got a green box for Shaquille O'Neal of +8. He went from 42 to 50, green box +8. Great job, Shaq.
Yes.
Between Steph's 2nd and 3rd years in the league, he had an ankle injury. His 2nd year, he shot 93% from the free throw line. His 3rd year, it plummeted, 81%.
Wow.
He declined by 12% from the free throw line. He went from 93 to 81%. So if we're going to show a box that shows
Horribly
change, bright red,
Horrible, yeah.
-12.
Yeah.
-12.
Shaq, dark green +8. Steph, -12, dark red.
Yeah.
Who's the better free throw shooter?
just looking at the chart without all the context, Shaq looks fantastic.
Absolutely. Oh man, don't I want to be in green plus 8 instead of Steph minus 12? No. Every single person that's ever watched basketball would take Steph's worst year ever over Shaq's best year ever. Check me on Basketball Reference.
Yes.
I looked this up. Yeah. Steph's worst year is still considerably better.
Yes.
Here's what the FHFA did. All right. Here's what the people at Fannie and Freddie did. On the old LLPAs, it was way better to have good credit than bad credit. You know, looking at the chart right now, for instance, all right, on the old LLPAs, if you were putting 5% down and you had a 740 credit score, you only had an LLPA, a loan level price adjustment of 0.75. Okay, so less than a point. And if you had a 620 credit score, your loan level pricing adjustment was 3.75. Almost 4%.
Wow.
All right? So 0.75 to 3.75, the distance between good credit and bad credit was 3 whole percentage points. All right? Here's the new numbers from the new chart, and you're going to notice something. Both get better. Both get better. Now, one gets more better, right? But
good grammar.
My mother, who's an English teacher, would be proud of that one. But now, if you have a 780 credit score and you're putting 5% down, your loan level price adjustment fell from 0.75 to 0.25.
Wow.
On a $400,000 loan, you just saved $2,000. You just saved $2,000. If you have good credit,
And
things are better for you.
That just got
in the
updated
new one.
in January,
Correct.
as opposed to what we had before.
Correct.
With all the hubbub of this is horrible.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you show that percent change on a chart, it's plus 0.5, light green.
Interesting.
What happened to the low credit score borrower? His went from a 3.75 to a 1.75. 3.75 to 1.75.
Okay.
His improved by 2 points.
Yeah.
So his is darker green. Now, what is the new LLPA? High credit, you're at 0.125. Low credit, you're at 1.75. Which one would you rather be at?
Definitely at 1.2.
Of course, the 0.125.
Yeah.
But you see that this guy's credit, this guy's LLPA, his improved by less than a point. The low credit score borrower improved by 2 whole points. On that chart of change, it's darker green. And it seems like we have hurt high credit borrowers and at the expense of, in order to help low credit borrowers. In reality, especially at certain down payment scenarios, we've helped everybody. We've just helped low credit borrowers a little bit more. It's the difference between Secretariat beating Sham at the Belmont Stakes by 31 lengths and Secretariat beating Sham at the Kentucky Derby by 2.5.
These are horses, by the way, for anybody who doesn't know.
Yeah.
That's my last sports analogy, I promise.
No, we love the sports analogy.
yeah, we
Sports,
do.
food, throw them in there.
Either way, you want to be Secretariat,
Yeah.
but one is a more impressive victory.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, and honestly, I have 5 key takeaways of the new LLPAs.
Okay.
All right. Number 1, low credit score borrowers still pay higher fees or rates than high credit score borrowers on every single loan scenario. Every single one.
So having good credit is still good.
Yes, I had somebody call me this week, not making this up. I had somebody call me this week. I heard the news. Should I miss a credit card payment to lower my credit?
Purposely hurt my
Yes.
credit score
Yes.
so I don't get stuck.
So that I can get a better
Yeah.
rate. I said, no, please do not do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
This is terrible. This is why I want to talk about this, because these are real people reading headlines,
Yeah. Yes.
thinking that this is something.
Yeah.
I put this on my Facebook, on my LinkedIn, on my Twitter. I said, here's the new LLPAs. If any person can show me one scenario where it is cheaper for a borrower to have lower credit than higher credit, I will Venmo $1 million to the charity of your choice. Doesn't exist. It is still much, much, much better to have high credit than it is to have low credit. It's not as much more better as it was before, but it is still better.
Okay.
Number 2, adjustments went down for all credit scores for anyone that's putting less money down. The biggest change to this, and we can talk about this in a little bit, if you're putting 5% down, that's what Fannie and Freddie want you to do. Why? Because they want you to pay mortgage insurance.
Makes sense.
Makes them feel better.
Makes sense.
They have hurt everybody that's wanting to put 15% down now. or 20% down. If you look at the LLPAs and the change, that's where you see the darkest red, people putting 15 or 20% down. Lenders hate when you put 20% down. Why? Because if you put 20% down, you're not paying a single dime of mortgage insurance.
Right.
And then if you get hit by a bus and you die and they foreclose on you,
They owe it all.
They owe something,
Yeah.
right? They would much rather you put 19% down and pay mortgage insurance for 6 months than put 20% down.
Yeah.
And you see this reflected, right? And it doesn't, to me, we can argue about whether or not that is good or not, whether it's fair or not. But it just is.
That's the reality.
Right? It's the reality.
It is.
All right, number 3. Further, and this is something a lot of people are missing, some of the changes quite literally help borrowers with higher credit more than they were helped before. Here's how.
Okay.
The old LLPAs, I'm showing you this picture right now, right? The old LLPAs, you've got bands for every single borrower.
Mm-hmm.
If you had a 740 or higher credit score, these are your LLPAs. If you had a 741 or an 841, you were treated the same on the old LLPAs. The new LLPAs, we added 2 more credit bands. We've got stuff for people 760 to 779. We've got people for 780 or higher. And if you'll look, before, if you had a 741 or an 841 and you were putting, 5% down, you had a 0.75 LLPA. But now this person with a 780 credit score or higher on this same loan is actually much more advantaged.
Yeah.
The 740, it's still a little bit higher at 0.5, but if you've got a 780, we're actually rewarding people with the very highest credit scores, contrary to what the news is actually saying.
Yes.
Right? So the people, if you really dig into these, the people that are really hurt the most are people from 680 to 740. All
Okay.
right, 680 to 740. If you're above 740, things got better for you.
All right, we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
All right, so and then we talked about that. I'll also note this. There is a lot of improvement on the bottom of the chart, but my argument is that that's fake improvement anyway, and here's why. So if you look at the percent change chart, the bottom 3 rows are all green or even dark green. So anyone trying to get a conventional loan with a credit score below 680, they got a lot of improvement. I'm arguing that that's fake because these borrowers aren't getting conventional loans anyway.
They're doing FHAs.
They're getting FHA loans and for a couple different reasons. Number one,
Well, before you get into that, can you just explain the difference between a conventional and
For sure.
and the FHA?
Yeah.
absolutely. So conventional loans, there's 3 main differences. Number one, conventional loan qualification guidelines are more strict. You can only go up to a 50% debt to income ratio on a conventional loan, for instance, whereas with FHA you can go up to 56.999%. All right, so more strict qualifications for a conventional loan. Secondly, on a conventional loan, mortgage insurance goes away once you get 20% equity. Automatically.
Yeah.
Compared to an FHA loan where if you don't put 10% down, you have mortgage insurance for life.
Okay.
All right. Third, conventional interest rates are typically about a point higher than FHA interest rates. The FHA was generally created for less qualified borrowers. And one of the reasons that this is so is because mortgage insurance on a conventional loan is totally tied to your credit score. All right, so take a $400,000 loan. If you have a 780 credit score and you put 5% down on a conventional loan, your mortgage insurance is only going to be $120 a month. But if you have a 640 credit score, everything else is the same, but your credit score is 640 and you get a conventional loan 5% down, your mortgage insurance is $421 a month.
Wow.
So because of this, anyone below a 680, I'm recommending as a loan officer, you should get an FHA loan. Why? Because mortgage insurance for FHA loans is the same for everybody, no matter what your credit score. That same loan, if we go FHA for that borrower, his mortgage insurance is $157. I'm going to save him almost $300.
Yeah.
Plus, that same FHA borrower, I could give him a 6.125% interest rate for no extra costs. If I wanted to give him a 6.25 on a conventional loan, I have to charge him almost 2 full points, $8,000 on a $400,000 loan. So sure, technically, if I have a 643 credit score borrower that qualifies for a conventional loan, theoretically, his LLPAs are lower now than they were. But I'm almost certainly not going to encourage that guy to get a conventional loan anyway.
Yeah.
And for me, like, this is the sinister part of this whole thing that people are missing.
Yeah.
It's the classic political move, which doesn't actually change reality, but makes people think, oh, look at this wonderful thing that we're doing for this group of people.
Yeah.
Right? It didn't change anything. And I'm a part of 2 loan officer groups on Facebook that have more than 6,000 loan officers in them apiece. All right? And I asked the same question. I said, give me a number. How many borrowers in the last year that had a 680 credit score or lower and were only putting 5% down on a loan, how many borrowers did you recommend to get a conventional loan? 2 groups, 6,000 each group. I had like 4 total.
Wow.
Everyone said the same thing. That's an FHA borrower all day. It's cheaper for them, less money down, less costs down, lower total monthly payment. Encourage this guy to get in the house, work on his credit, refinance him into a conventional loan down the road, and get rid of that mortgage insurance that way. So it's like, yeah, look at all the stuff that we're doing for, the 640 borrower that's buying a conventional loan. He's not buying it a conventional loan. He's getting an FHA loan. And these LLPAs have nothing to do with FHA loans. The LLPAs on FHA loans are completely different from conventional loans. So that's the whole picture. Mm-hmm. That's the whole story. I know I've pretty much monopolized this time so far.
That's fine. That's why we have you on, because you're the expert.
Yes. We didn't really know, as we said before, about... So that's 5 really good reasons, honestly, that John went through here that really do show that it is overwhelmingly not what the news and media is making it out to be.
Yeah, and again, and we'll show you these, the pictures of all the different charts in the show notes.
Yeah.
But you can see exactly what they did. Here we have bright red for somebody with a 720 that's putting 15% down, and it got worse for him. And then here's bright green for someone with a 640 that's putting 5% down. It's bright green for him. And then you see the clip on the news.
Yeah.
The low credit score borrower now gets a 1.75% credit, whereas the high credit score borrower has to pay an extra 0.75. No. Compared to before, that's a difference. But still, this low credit score LLPA is way higher than this higher credit score LLPA over here. Yeah. And it was picked up. So I traced this back to an article from the New York Post.
Okay. That
was then repeated in a newspaper called the Washington Times. That was then aggregated by Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, Dave Ramsey's show, Jeff Jacoby from the Boston Globe, who I really like. He's a good author. Yahoo Finance. This is not like a partisan thing. This is people from all over the perspective, and they're aggregating it. They read what he wrote. Right. The original author talked to one loan officer from California who also seemed to misunderstand exactly what was being shown on this chart. And then everyone just ran with it. Well, this guy did the research and said this is how it is, and now it's everywhere. And I'm literally telling people, no, please keep your credit good. You're going to want to have good credit. It's still much better for you.
Yeah. We just did just our last 2 podcasts that we've done have been on credit.
Credit score.
And then we just did before that we did renting and buying a house. So I think the timing of this is really important, because as we're talking about these topics, I think a lot of people who are listening have questions on, well, if I'm looking at getting a house, this is going to affect me. Already mortgage interest rates, they're maybe not as high as they have been in years past in the 80s, 90s, right? We know that they were absurd. But in the last 3 years, we've had wonderful rates.
Yes.
So they're already a little high, so people are already on edge on buying a house, and then they see this and they're like, there's no way I'm buying a house. Right. So when you have people coming up to you with those concerns, kind of what's your encouragement on it's going to be okay, take a step back, let's look at reality. Yeah.
So I try to go through, I try to keep it a little bit shorter than what I did with you guys, because not everyone is interested in getting as in depth. But what I start off by starting off where I did start. Interest rates are just like any other thing of value. You can get whichever one you want. How much do you want to pay for it? Okay. Number 2, you qualify for a different interest rate based off of your credit score, your debt to income ratio, and how much money you put down. Here's the chart. Look at it yourself. It's not that complicated, right? Down the left side, this is your credit score. Figure out your credit score. That's going to be your row. Across the top, this is how much money you put down. If you put 5% down, you're at 95% LTV, loan to value. If you put 10% down, you're at 90% LTV, loan to value. So you go, I'm putting 10% down. I've got a 735 credit score. Now here's my LLPA. Now I say, look at what it would be if your credit score was only 650. And it's always higher. You want the higher credit score. It is true, if you bought last year, the difference between you and Mr. 650 would be wider. But you have not been hurt by this.
Yeah.
Almost everyone was helped at most of the loan to value spots. It's specifically the 15 and 20% down that was changed compared to before.
So with that in mind, right? Let's just talk about a reality situation on somebody who has a good credit score, is able to put that 15, 20% down. Maybe they're a little tentative to do that because you're saying they're affected the most. Are we then encouraging people, okay, well, we know you can put 15% down. Maybe you should just put 10% down, bank that extra money, and then maybe put a little bit extra every single month on to knock down the interest, or put a lump sum in a couple of years, right, to knock it down? What would the scenario look like for them?
Great questions. So every situation is going to be a little bit different. But I would first of all note that a lot of this is relative. All right, so we're looking at this chart right here. For let's say you've got a 760 credit score, right? If you put 10% down, you've got a loan level pricing adjustment of 0.5. If you put 15% down, it does get worse. It moves up to 0.625. How much of a difference is that really? If you put an extra 5% down, your mortgage insurance does get cheaper. Your total amount borrowed goes lower. Your mortgage payment gets lower. I might say, sure, you pay a little bit, tiny bit more upfront in closing, but big picture, you're going to save a lot of money to put 15% down. If people are very worried, though, and I've coached a couple people to do this, you see big differences between 5% and 15%, right? 5%, you can get a LLPA of 0.125, whereas over here it can be closer, 0.625. I have coached people to do this. Put 5% down at closing. And then a month later, we're going to do something called recasting your loan. You can take that other 10 or 15% that you were planning on putting down at closing, and you make a big principal payment on your loan at that point. And it's not a full refinance, it's called a recast. So if you're putting a big principal payment down, we can actually recast your loan for about $300 and then change your monthly payment to look like what it would have been like if you put 15% down, if you put 20% down. If you want to put the other 15% down and not have mortgage insurance, I have a lot of people do this. Put 5% down, then put another 15% down. 2 months later, they paid mortgage insurance for 1 month, but they got the better rate because they did this. And if a recast, not every lender can do it, but work with a lender that can do that. And the recast is a great way to go, and you can save all that money, get rid of that mortgage insurance. That's like a loophole in the game to save some money on costs.
So is it the same thing as a refinance? You're just not paying all the additional closing costs additional?
Correct.
And you can still get all the benefits of that drop mortgage once that drop mortgage comes up.
Correct. So a refinance, you've got new lender fees, you've got new title fees, you've got escrow fees that have to get changed. We don't want to do that. We don't want to give you a whole brand new loan.
Yeah, because let's be honest, right? That cost, you said $300 for a recast
versus $5-6 grand for a refinance. Correct.
Yeah.
So the recast, not the refinance. The recast is the way to go in those situations.
But once again, not all lenders do that.
Correct.
Is there a time limit to how long it's eligible? Can you recast 2 years after?
You can recast whenever you want.
Okay.
Most lenders will say, now if you want to make an extra principal payment of $4 grand, you can't recast, right? They're going to want you to make a payment of at least, say, $10,000 in order to do a recast.
Okay.
But if you have a big chunk to put down like that, for sure the recast option is a great option.
Okay. All right. So I have another question. Do you have another question? I don't want to just monopolize this side. We're just going to skip over you the whole time.
That's all good.
I
did have one quick question, though. So in lines of the media kind of misleading people on kind of what was going on with the interest rates, there's talk of a 40-year mortgage.
Yeah.
I was wondering, I only heard a little bit about it. I don't know much about it, but I was wondering if you can expound on that. Is that even a viable option? Is that even an option? Is it a thing?
Yeah, great question. So the first place I heard about this was on Facebook from another loan officer. Hey, we got a 40-year mortgage. And I was like, do we really? What's going on here? Here's what happened. The FHA was worried about some of their buyers, some of their borrowers that are currently in FHA loans and are having a hard time making their payments in this down economy. All right. So they made a new rule. If you are in an FHA loan and you're struggling to keep up with your payments, we will modify your current loan from a 30-year payment into a 40-year payment to help you lower your payments. Okay. This is not something that just anyone can qualify for. If you're out here trying to buy a house and you're like, oh, can I get a 40-year loan? No, you cannot. This is not for brand new loans. This is not for brand new purchases. This is for homeowners that are already in a home, that are not trying to move, and they're struggling with their payments. Maybe they're a couple payments behind. FHA doesn't want to necessarily foreclose on them. They're trying to work with them, so it's a loan modification option. We'll take your current mortgage that, let's say it was supposed to mature in 2050, and we'll push it back to 2060. And when we do this, we are going to lower your payment, and we're going to tack on a whole bunch of interest for you for the life of your loan. But perhaps it will help keep you in this loan. A couple things about this. Number one, if you need to do this, I'm not going to tell you not to, right? I definitely don't want anyone to lose out on a house, have to move because they can't make their payments. But this is not like just a 100% positive thing for the homeowner. When you do a loan modification, this will dramatically affect what you can do for a mortgage in the future. For instance, rates right now on FHA loans, mid to high fives today. Okay. Let's say you bought a house last year, you're at 5.5%, and you're struggling to make your payments, and they tell you, hey, we can modify you into a 40-year mortgage, saves you $200 a month. So you opt into this loan modification. And then a year from now, rates fall back down. Now they're in the 4.5 range. You might not be able to refinance because you entered into a loan modification. And sometimes these loan modifications have rules such as you've got to make 12 payments on time under the new loan terms before you can refinance out of it. And if you had just been able to wait a little bit longer, you might have been able to save that $200 a month by refinancing with a lower interest rate. So it's a classic governmental change, right? Hey, here's something to do that we can help you. And then there's 9 strings attached. And you're like, okay, well, is this going to keep me?
Is this affected also if you buy a house at 20 years and you want to jump to a 30-year? Same concept, or is it only to the 40?
Yeah, so great question. If you are in a 20-year mortgage and you want to hop back to a 30, that would just be a classic refinance. Okay. All right. This modification is specifically, again, only for people that are behind on their payments, struggling making their payments, might not be able to qualify for a refinance because they've missed some payments. Yeah. So the FHA is going to reach out to them directly, renegotiate, and modify their current mortgage into a new 40-year, which is going to give you some help in the short term and is going to pay them a lot more money in the long term.
And what we're saying, I think, before we went on to the podcast, we were talking before the show, and you said this doesn't really even exist because when I go to a mortgage loan officer, when I purchase a home, right, I can't get a 40-year mortgage.
Correct.
This is something that I already have a house. Then they're going to do this modification and switch me to a 40-year. So it's not like this, hey, I have a 10 and I have 15 and 20 and I can get a 40-year now.
Correct. Yeah. Nothing like that. Anytime you're trying to get a new loan, you're still at the 15, 20, 25, 30 marks. Okay. Yeah.
That's good.
All right. I had another question. I think a lot of people, when they're looking at this new administration thing that we spent a good bit of the first time chatting through, they kind of take it back to 2008, where we had people with lower credit buying more homes, and then we saw there was an issue with, and that wasn't the issue, right? But that played into it, where people were then defaulting on their loans because they couldn't pay for the house. Do you see that? I think a concern people might have is we're going to do the same thing. Lower credit people are going to be buying more homes now because of this, and it's helping them out. And
sure.
In a year, we're all going to be defaulting on our loans, and we're going to be in 2008 again, right?
I think that's a great question. It's an important question. And that's where, again, they actually, Fannie and Freddie made changes to address this, and nobody's talking about them. In January, when the new LLPAs were rolled out, not a single loan officer I know was worried about the LLPAs on credit. There was one that we were all worried about that we haven't even talked about. You'll see here, once these roll into effect, they have added a new LLPA for anyone with a debt-to-income ratio above 40%. In the past, if you had a 35% debt-to-income ratio or a 49% debt-to-income ratio, didn't matter. Your rate was determined by your credit and by your down payment. But I think we would all agree someone with a debt-to-income ratio of 49 is much riskier than someone with a debt-to-income ratio of 35, where you would really want to stay on a mortgage. And you'll see, we have some pretty big LLPA pricing adjustments no matter what your credit score is for anyone with a debt-to-income ratio over 40%, 0.375. This is a huge change in pricing. Fannie and Freddie are aware of this, and they don't want us to go into another housing crisis. So they've actually made it harder, much harder in the last year and a half. They've made it much harder for low credit buyers to qualify for conventional loans. First of all, I kind of zoomed over this earlier. Fannie has what's called an automated underwriting system. We call it Desktop Underwriter. Essentially, it's like an algorithm that you feed all of the information for a borrower into this little piece of software. It reads it, and then it spits out a grade. It either gives you an approve eligible, which says, yeah, we'll do this loan, or a refer with caution, which means, nope, can't do this loan. Maybe the FHA will do it, but we won't. They brought out Desktop Underwriter version 11.0 last March. And from that point on, it became almost impossible to get borrowers with credit scores below 680 even approved for a conventional loan. So many refer with cautions. I'll talk about it with my friends. This guy's got 10% down. He's got a DTI of 38%. He's got, but he's got a 677 credit score. I can't get an approval with Fannie. I have to go FHA. They're already making it more difficult with their algorithms. And then adding this LLPA, loan officers are worried because sometimes you have a borrower that's got a DTI of 39%. And you've got a DTI of 39% because you're calculating $100 a month for homeowners insurance. Goes under contract, gets a homeowners insurance quote. Oh, this house is actually in a flood zone. Homeowners insurance is $200, not $100. Oh no. Well, you still qualify, but now your DTI is 41%. Your interest rate just got almost a half point more expensive, right? That's what we've been freaking out about.
Yeah.
The federal government is actually doing things to try to make it harder, make it more difficult for people to get loans. So I actually think they are doing their best to control for this, to protect us from having another, 100 million people going into foreclosures because they can't afford their houses. So yeah, it's a great question. I think they're trying to tighten up. The problem is a lot of times you can't get it approved conventional. FHA will take anything. So they're like, okay, well, we'll just do an FHA loan. And now you're kind of kicking the can down the curb a little bit. But at least as far as conventional loans go, I think they are doing a decent job of trying to control for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think this has been really good. I think I myself have a much better understanding of what's going on. I don't know about you.
For sure. Yeah.
It's been really good. I like kind of the why. It's the proof behind it. The charts, as he said, we'll put them in the show notes so you can see them too. You can see what he was pointing to and referring to there. But I think really, when it comes down to it, just having the knowledge of what's going on and making sure you're with someone you can trust, right, for a home buying experience is so key. So at this point, John, do you have a Facebook that people can follow?
That people can just randomly call.
Yeah. So you can see information about our team online, steadfastmortgageteam.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on YouTube, youtube.com/the Dean of Mortgages. So I'm on YouTube. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. Please feel free to reach out. I'm super excited to talk to people, help them out. I help out a lot of people that I don't actually give a loan. I have a background in teaching. I was a high school teacher and dean of students. So I love educating people. So now I'm the dean of mortgages. That's where my nickname comes from. So yeah, anything I can do to help, I'd be more than happy to do with your listeners.
Awesome. Yeah. And where are you licensed, just out of curiosity? What states?
Yeah, so I am licensed in Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, and Florida. My team can do loans in any state that's not New York.
Okay.
So if you live anywhere, I could do your loan through somebody on my team. The ones that I usually specialize in would be those, that band in the Midwest, and then South Carolina, Florida.
Okay. All right, perfect. And we do thank you again very much for coming on and kind of giving us this. And I know it'll help a lot of people out there. So thank you once again. And on that note, join us again next week. We're going to be talking about some other hard-hitting topics.
Yeah.
But follow
maybe
us.
not this hard-hitting, but
maybe
hard-hitting.
Yeah. But follow us on financialfeastpod.com. We have Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube as well. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time.